Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Maor. My team and I have decided to create a video series that is probably going to be quite long about answering very short questions. And the reason for this is that I started getting quite a lot of questions over email about my opinions, about my beliefs in various subjects. Now, of course, I'm a breatharian, I'm a teacher, but I'm also a human being, so I have opinions to the right and to the left. My opinions, just like every other person, change over time. Sometimes they're constant, that I can see that the same opinion I had 20 years ago is still consistent with my current belief system, but my opinions also change over time. Plus, not all of my opinions will correlate with your current beliefs. If you've seen my Spiral Dynamics video series, then you've probably seen that people change over time. And it doesn't mean that we catalog ourselves, but there are reasons for that change. With time, with age, with wisdom, come a new perspective about life. So this will be the introduction to the video series, and inside this bigger video series, Avery Answers Questions, there will be mini-series that we're going to create when we're going to catalog. For example, weight loss questions, for example, personal development questions, and you're probably going to see that we're going to start bringing out more and more videos, these short, reel type of videos. So, without further ado, let us begin. Video number 1. The question was, why is there poverty and suffering in the world? Now again, I'm just going to answer this out of the back of my head. Suffering is a constant choice that we have made in order to become a human being. What does that mean? An animal does not suffer like a human being suffers. So there's physical suffering, of course, for the animal, sometimes prey and something that catches the animal. The way that we treat the animal, it's mostly physical. Sometimes when you see a calf being taken away from the cow, then you can actually see that the cow is emotionally suffering, but not in a way that a human being suffers. Suffering comes from a perspective. If you've seen one of my videos about the difference between suffering and pain, is that the pain is a constant. We cannot take the pain away. You broke your arm, you're in pain. What you make of it is the suffering. The best example that I can give you is a mosquito bite. The mosquito has bitten you. You've seen it. Now there's a choice. Suffering will be to itch all the time, which will make it spread and become even more itchy than ever before. You can choose to look at it, but looking at your pain will make the suffering come by itself. So you play the game of ignoring it, which again is a change of perspective. Can we build a world without suffering? We probably can. Did we come to this world because of the suffering? I believe we did. I believe we came because there's struggle, because there's challenge, because there's teachings that we are learning from that. What I see is that when people are very, very comfortable, all of us, we start to neglect our personal development. People who have quite a lot of money, people who are very wealthy, they're not very emotionally stable, and they're suffering quite a lot emotionally. Why? Because they recognize themselves as the money. And when you recognize yourself as the money, you no longer know if people love you because of yourself or your money. And you start asking yourself, deep down on a subconscious level, what would I do if I didn't have my finances? For example, people who are very, very successful at one age or very famous at one age, 10 years later, they look back and they judge themselves for not being successful as they used to be. So that's another type of suffering. So can I imagine a world that is heaven-like? Sure, I can do that. Will everybody get along? No, because everybody has different opinions, because everybody feels differently about different things, because people like to bring up their kids in a different type of environment. So there will always be one sort of suffering. And now what can we do about it? We can change our perspective. You've probably noticed that every one of us has a complaint about our parents. In one way or another. Some, a deep trauma. And for others, they didn't give me enough. I don't know, candy, attention, love. Everybody has a complaint about their mom or their dad or both of them together. Now, what does that mean? We're talking from the lightest, stuck-up girl that got everything that she wanted and still complaining, to the person that was violated and sexually abused by their parents. Everybody has any sort of complaints. Can we agree that being sexually molested by your parents is much worse than not getting a higher allowance? Of course, but it's a matter of perspective. Both of them are suffering. What can they do about it? They can change the story. They can change the state. They can notice when it's actual pain and when it's pain that we create out of that pain in order to squeeze those triggers that we don't have. The trigger of lacking love, the trigger of lacking attention. It's all about squeezing the right triggers, the right buttons in ourselves. There is suffering in the world because right now the world needs us to suffer. Because right now the global consciousness or the unity of consciousness chooses for us to suffer. And by the way, you can see it as a reflection. There's a mirror that shows us. As long as animals are suffering by human hands, which I believe has maybe a decade, maybe 2 decades, and will stop animal suffering as well. But as long as the world accepts that, then the animal kingdom and between ourselves, things like war and poverty and other things like that will still exist in our reality. What can we actually do about it? We change our perspective about those things inside ourselves. We don't judge society. We change it within ourselves. And when we change it, we put a different shade of glasses on, and the whole world will change around us. If every one of us will take his own responsibility without expectations that the others will do that, you will slowly see, and you're already seeing, there's a global shift in consciousness. And it's happening slowly, it's happening slower than what we want it to happen, but it's actually happening.